23 years ago, Regina passed away, and she's talking to us about what that was like for her in this episode. What she saw in the afterlife blew her mind, from looking down at her own physical body surrounded by medical staff to colors and music and sounds that are just not existent in this physical world we live in. Regina also shares how her own psychic abilities have helped make her connection to her parents on the other side and the spirit world even stronger for her. You'll hear it all here on Third Eyesight. My name is Juan Francisco, and I'm a psychic medium and tarot card reader. I've always been curious about the supernatural, the paranormal, and psychic abilities, and I'm here to share my stories and interview folks who want to share their own stories with us. Let's get to it. Regina, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hello, at last. It's great to hear your voice.
I'm so excited to meet you, and I know we were talking beforehand that you've been a longtime listener of the podcast too. So it's lovely to
Yes, I have been.
it's lovely to get to interview you about your experience. So, where are you based?
I'm based in Dublin, Ireland, in Dublin.
Wonderful, and you are my first guest based in Ireland, so that's really exciting. And I know that we're
Super.
talking today, yeah, and I know we're talking today about we're going to talk about your near-death experience, but I would love to hear from you first. What was your did religion play a role in your upbringing or spirituality? I would love to get to the context before we talk about your near-death experience of what was your belief system, or what were you brought up with before your experience?
When I was brought up as a Catholic and used to go to Mass every single Sunday. And that was basically it. It's just go to Mass, pray, and communion, confession, the usual, you know. So say prayers every night now, like just making sure everybody's okay and safe and keep them safe. But I always do remember being worried about dying and thinking, oh my God, please make sure Mom's okay, Dad's okay, and list all the people, all of my brothers and sisters, you know. So I do remember having that fear of dying, you know, as a kid. But that's basically it. It was just Catholic upbringing. I'm very spiritual now, you know, very, very. I'm in tune to a lot of things, you know. But I've always been that way. I've had crazy dreams. I used to think they were crazy, but they'd come true. And then I thought I was a bit weird. I was like, oh my God, I can't say this, you know, I can't. But things would always come true. So that's why I can remember even from a young age, you know. But the older I get, the more now I'm like, okay, this is warning me, this is letting me know, this is helping and guiding, you know.
Right.
So yeah,
Right. It's interesting you mentioned the fear of death. I mean, other than doing a podcast episode on it, I just remember as a child, I had a petrifying, almost panic attack level fear of death, and worried about
yes,
my parents dying, my loved ones
yeah,
dying, and what was it going to be like to be old and then to be dead.
yes, yeah, that's
I
it,
remember,
yeah,
yeah, I would
yeah.
hyperventilate, and I'm very open about this, even though it's a little embarrassing. I still sometimes, even though I'm a working psychic medium, I still have a fear of like death, because it's still, as much as I may channel people from the other side,
Yeah,
I've never been to the other side. Now,
no,
your
yeah,
case is
yeah. I'm going.
different.
I'm like, no, I'm not afraid. No, I'm looking at you. You're saying I'm afraid. I'm like, oh, don't. But like, it's true. Unless you've been where I've been or experienced it, like you would still have that. But I have no
No,
fear whatsoever
and that's
now.
so comforting to hear.
Yeah.
And so, when did this experience happen to you?
23 years ago, I had a dream the night before about the waiting room. And like this hospital, it doesn't really, you don't really get operations there. But anyway, I was the wisdom teeth that I needed out, and it was 4 years of pain and suffering. So eventually got there and we got inside, and I stood there and I says, oh my God, this is the waiting room. So the partner was with me at the time, and he's like, oh my God, what your dream now? He was like, oh my God, what is she on about now? But anyway, I kept saying there's something going to go wrong here. Please make sure my mother's called. Make sure my mom has her number. all this, like to even the staff, anybody even walking by, I was getting a hold of them. But there was another girl there, and they came along and said, you don't mind if we let her go first? I said, no, walk away. So off they went, and she was done within 20 minutes, well, an hour with recovery and all that. So in that time, my partner was making me laugh because he was singing, and I was getting a bit upset. I was like, oh my God, I had a gut feeling, and it was just a dream. Every part of the dream, it was like it was happening there. So I'm like, oh my God, oh my God. And then I said, no, this has to happen. This has to happen. And then just something came over me, and it was like, you have to do it. You have to do it. You're going to be okay. So I walked through the door, and the girl, she turned around to me and she says, oh my God, we could hear you laughing, and we could hear your partner singing and all this. And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, like, are you nervous? So I proceeded to say to her, I had a dream and blah, blah, blah. And she turned around and she goes, no, you're in safe hands. She says, are you afraid? It was getting the wisdom teeth taken out. Are you afraid of getting? I said, no, I'm not. I said, I just know something's going to go wrong, and I need my mother called. Here's a number. That's all I kept saying to anybody that would listen, call me mother. So anyway, she says, you're in safe hands. She says, you're going to count back to 10 and I'll be here. It's less than 20 minutes and you'll be in the recovery room and everything's fine. So counting back. And I was like, oh God, no. But I was too late. I was gone then. So what I can remember then is I woke up. Well, I was lying on the operating theatre. The doctor was up on top of me and he's pumping away, doing CPR. And he said, she's flatlined. Oh my God, she's flatlined. And the girl that gave me the anesthetic, she's like, oh my God, the girl said it. And she's crying her eyes out. She's in bits. And I'm up floating away, happy as Larry. And I remember feeling, oh my God, what's all this about? And like, I was like thinking, that's very American, saying flatlined. Like, why the saying flatlined? Like, because I just thought it was a real American saying, like you just think it was like, she's gone, that's it. But he's still walking away, and I'm still going all the way up, right up to the right-hand corner. And I'm looking at myself, and I'm like, oh my God, Regina, what's going on? There's something not right here. You were right. And then I kept saying to myself, you were right. But I was still floating away, and no one could stop it, And there was a big flash of white light, absolutely flash of white light. And then I was in a field. It was gorgeous. It was a field, and then loads of different colours, and I've never seen these colours before. Now it looks like, like Care Bears, the Care Bears years ago, that kind of colour. It's mushy colour, mushed in together as such, but it was absolutely beautiful. And then the music was just like, every time I say it, I just get goosebumps. The music, I've never heard the music before.
Now, may I ask you a question real quick? So I want to make sure I understood. So when just to walk myself through it, just to make sure I understand the visuals and the sense, or what you were experiencing. So you remember the doctor doing CPR on you and saying you flatlined. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And are you in your body looking up, experiencing that as a soul?
No, I'm coming out.
You're coming out.
Yes.
And then you're at the corner of the room, you floated up, and then the white light, and then this field with music and beautiful colors.
A beautiful field, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It was just sorry. No. I'm just visualizing it myself because I go back right into the moment. So please forgive me. Do you know what I mean?
No,
so
please.
Anyway, I'm there, and I could see then it was like souls. Well, what I could say was shadows. Now that I'm 23 years on, it was definitely souls, but it was just white shadows, and there was loads. And I'm like, oh my God, what's everybody doing? And in the middle of all this, I could see Megan playing in the corner. So I went from up there then to see Megan playing with her little kitchen where we lived. And she's playing away. And I'm like, oh, there's Megan. Megan, it's Mammy. Like, I'm like, Megan's Mammy. And she's still playing, not hearing me, obviously enough. Then I could see the partner, he was banging on the door, screaming what's going on, because obviously enough, he told me later on the staff came running out and went back in with whatever equipment they needed. And I could see that happening. I could also see my mother. She got the phone call and she collapsed. And she said, not my Regina. And she just hit the floor on her knees and she's screaming hysterical. And I could also see my brother driving my mother to this particular hospital. So it was I could see so much happening and still being up there as well. So Another thing that I could see, now was this part was very, very quick. I could see myself at the age I was all the way back to when I was born. So it was like a flash of everything. And I'm like, oh, I remember that time. Like that's a part I always think of as well. Like it was like, oh God, look at me that age, and like something happened to me then. And it's like but anyway, I'm trying to just keep in the moment because I'll keep going. But anyway,
No, describe as much as you want. This is fascinating. So please.
all right, okay. So I could see all that happening, and then the music, as I said, the colors were just amazing, everything. And do you know what I actually felt? Unconditional love. I remember thinking, this is the way my mum loves me. This is the way, I felt like I was being wrapped around and hugged and loved. And it was like, I don't want to leave here. I don't want to leave here. I'm quite happy. Like, well, I was being nosy. I was like, what's going to happen next? Like, it seemed so quickly, but it wasn't, because when I came back, it was hours later. But this all happened very quickly. So it's different time, as what I can gather, different time zones as such. But then my granddad, I did have dreams of him before, but he died before I was born. And he was standing there right in front of me. And I was like, oh my God, he looks like my brother. And it wasn't like we were talking. It was like mind to mind. And it was like, I was like, you're familiar to me. And he goes, yeah, I know you. He says, I'm here beside you all the time. And I went, oh, you're my guardian angel. I actually remember saying that because I always had a prayer about guardian angel. And he said to me, he says, I said, you look like my brother. You smile like him. And I said, oh my God, you're my granddad. You're my granddad. And he nodded. And he says, yes, I am. And I stepped forward. Now, he was a good bit away from me, but it was just so handsome. And the light, I was just getting pulled more and more. But then when I got a certain distance from him, I just stopped. And that was the first time, like, I kind of stopped. And he was like, it's not your time yet, Regina. It's not your time. And with that, when he said that, I could go back and see Megan again. So for that quick second, my mind went back to my daughter. And I remember thinking, oh, hold on a minute. Hold on. And I'm like, oh, no, she needs me. And then he says, I went to reach out to hold him, to touch him. And he says, don't touch me. He says, they're not in a nicer way. Like, it wasn't like, he said, don't touch me. He says, it's not your time yet, Regina. You have very important things to do. And with that, bang, I screamed Megan's name. That was the last thing I'd done, was screamed Megan's name, and I was back in the body. And the doctor said, we have her. So that was that. And it was amazing. Like, I haven't shared this with many people. I've only shared it with 2 people, probably 3. And it was very important to me. Something in my head was telling me to tell these people, because they really needed to hear it, But it was absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely. It was just, look, I would experience it again now and again and again. Do you know what I mean? It was just magical. It was just unreal. And the crazy part about all this, I only found out in 2018, my granddad died in the hospital. Like, there's so many different hospitals here. So he actually died in the hospital, years ago. Well, yeah. So it's just crazy when you, it was just beautiful. It was absolutely, and that's what, I've no fear of dying. And like, the only thing would be to leave them, but they're okay. Like, I mean, everybody will be okay. But it was just beautiful. Absolutely.
I'm tearing up, and I'm a sap, but I'm tearing up, and because
I wish everybody could experience it. I know that sounds, it's just, I feel like if everybody knew, if everybody could go through what I went through,
sure,
their mind, something clicks. Don't get wrong, we all have stresses in life. We all have things going on. Life is hard. Life is hard. Do you know what I mean? But I know when it's my time again, I will go, and I'll have my family there. The whole lot of them. There was a whole load of them up there anyway, but there's even extra more. Do you know what I mean? And like, it's just like, it's just amazing. It's just, there's no words that can. I'm trying my best to explain it. But if I could just get you to even feel what I'm feeling now, like if I could take a picture of a video of it and send it to you, you'd be like, oh, it's just amazing.
And I can see, like, I know folks listening can't see us, so but I can see in your expression in your face just how
Yeah.
much this experience meant to you and just how it
Oh
still
yeah.
impacts you. And
Yeah.
and when you were in this field, um how would you describe, because I've heard other people describe similar experience, a similar experience, but we'll have to hear it in your words. Like, were there colors that you recognized? What was the music like?
The music was like, it was like a choir, but I never ever heard the music ever. And even when I'm listening and tuning into, no, like I love music anyway. I really love music, but it's like it was like it was like a choir. That's the best way I could explain it. But the choir wouldn't even, like, I've never heard it before. It was just absolutely amazing, and it was just, I wish I could hear it again.
Hmm.
You know, it's just hard to. It's just like different tunes and different tones and different. It was just beautiful and gentle. It was just lovely. It was, and the
Hmm.
colors was great. And the field, actually, there was also grass, long grass. Now I couldn't touch anything. Like, I was walking through it. Not the way you can touch things here. I couldn't touch anything there.
Oh,
So that's,
interesting.
yeah, yeah. I couldn't touch anything. Like, it's just I was floating and just seeing it all, and then walking through it, but I couldn't feel it. You know, I
Yeah.
could see it, but I couldn't feel. It was like a 3D or whatever. Yeah, 3D.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
And kind of rewinding back to, you're on the operating table and you hear she's flatlined.
Mm.
What were did you was there an emotion you felt when you heard that? What was that like to hear that?
All I thought was, like, that's very American, and I'm going out with my body at this stage, and I'm like, that's very American for him to say that. And then I was like, I knew something was going to go wrong. Now do you believe me? It was kind of like, now do you
Mm,
believe me? Oh my God, that's great. Nobody believed me, and now here I am. Like, that's exactly what I was thinking in my head.
wow.
Like,
And when
yeah,
you
and
were
there was no fear. There was no fear now.
that's
No
what I was
fear whatsoever.
wondering.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, no
And
fear at all.
when you were floating towards the top corner of the room looking down at your body, what was running through your, I don't want to say running through your head because you obviously don't have a head as a soul. But what was running through, what was the thought there?
I was actually looking at the girl that, and the girl that gave me the anesthetic, and she was very upset. And I remember thinking, oh God, somebody help her. Somebody help her. She's crying. And I remember thinking,
Mm,
everybody's in a panic. Why are you in a panic? Like, stop panicking. It's going to be okay. Stop panicking, everybody. Like, that's all I felt, was concern for them working on my body. And I do remember thinking, God, Virginia, you're very small in that bed. Like, I am a small person, but I just remember thinking, God, you're very small in that bed, you know.
and it's
So,
interesting
like,
because I
yeah,
feel like in I'll say in fiction and movies, some people depict it as I have to get back to my body,
no,
but what you were, the very first thought that you had was, oh my goodness, these poor people or this poor
yeah,
young woman, you know, and
mm,
a curiosity. You had a curiosity about the body, which I've heard other people share that too. When they look down
really,
at their
yeah.
body, it's like a lot of people describe when they have died and they're looking down at their body, it's like they look at it like, huh, that's a little interesting thing down there. That I look very interesting. How curious is that? Yeah. And
Yeah.
and so with the reason I started our conversation about what your spiritual upbringing was, I would like to now bring that back. I would like to ask you, how did this experience confirm or add on to what you were taught growing up about death and dying?
Well, just thinking, like, it is real. Like, there is heaven. It's like there's something else. Like, I didn't see God or anything. I just felt the unconditional love. Like, totally, as I said, I was wrapped with this love and protection. That's what I felt like. So it's just like, I don't go to mass all the time now, or like, I'm more meditating, and it has changed me as a person. Like, I think I'm more, like, I'm very very busy anyway, and I'm go 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 go, but I don't sweat the small stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was pretty young when that happened. I think I was, oh, wait a minute, I'm trying to think. I was 24, I think, no, 25, no, 20, 23, I think, 23 when it happened. So, like, 23 or 23, you think you're invincible anyway. You know what I mean? We all think we're invincible, but I suppose it doesn't matter what age you are. But especially when you're younger, you do. You have that, like, oh, nothing's going to happen to me. I'm fine, like, you know. But unfortunately, it does happen. But I just, I just, I've always felt even more now, like the dreams are stronger. My intuition is stronger. Like I knew, I had a dream that I hadn't had another anesthetic because, like, I just didn't. I found out I'm allergic to scolding. That's what they found out. Like, and I
Mm.
was the last person to be operated in that hospital. So it was a big deal. And like, people probably say, oh, you could have seen, you could have done this, you could have. But look, no, I'm alive. It was an experience. I'm alive. That's it. But with mum and dad, my dad has only recently passed. He's come up to 9 months, and mum is 11 weeks.
Mm.
So with all this gift I have as a person, helping so many people, I was fighting with it with my dad because I'm like, I need to know when. I need to know. Tell me, tell me, tell me. So dad was brought home the 5th of March and told he'd hours and days left. But dad stayed with us for 18 months. He'd heart failure. But in the dream that I had a dream that I was going underneath another anesthetic and that my dad passed when I had the anesthetic. And I remember waking up and saying, why did you just tell me? Why didn't you just leave me in the hospital and just medicate me? Because I can't deal with that. I can't deal with that gone, and I missed it. So basically what happened, I ended up having 2 procedures the year my dad died. They had to be done, and there was question marks over the anesthetic and all this. But I said, look, I have to have it done, and that's it. So the first one, dad was sick. The palliative team were down, the doctors were down throughout them 18 months, and this is the time now. And I always said, no, dad's not going anywhere. Like, he's unconscious, like he's thrown in colour and everything. And I'm like, he's not going anywhere. It's not his time. And all the families, Regina. I said, he's not going anywhere. But the reason I said that is I had one operation in May and then one in August, well, a procedure. And when I went for that procedure, I said to the girl, something's going to go wrong with my dad today. And she goes, what do you mean? I says, he's in palliative care the last 18 months. I says, I have such an overwhelming feeling. Where am I in the queue? She says, you're third. I said, no, no, no. And I hadn't the night clothes on and everything, well, the gown on. I said, no, I have to go. I have to go back. My dad needs me. I was with my dad the Tuesday. This happened on the Wednesday. I was with my dad the Monday, Tuesday, like. And my dad knew I was going, and talking away, I was there with my dad for hours. And he said, you'll be okay. But anyway, she ended up walking me into the theatre. She said, go on, you go in there first. So I was done, back home and everything by 11 o'clock. My brother rang me at 12, said the doctor was down with Regina. I says, okay. And he goes, it's time. I says, okay, I know. And I rang up my sister, her husband. He came from Kildare to collect me. And I went into my dad's. And I'm telling him what happened with the procedure I got done. He says, you'll be okay, love. He says, you'll be okay. The results will be back, you'll be okay. So my dad, after having a little chat with him about that, he says, it's my time now, Regina, isn't it? I says, yeah. And he goes, you know it and you can feel it. I says, I can. I said, but come back to me, Dad. I said, no, don't just give me the signs, give all the rest of the family the signs. I said, because they need to hear Dad, okay? So my dad was like, okay. So the Wednesday I had a lovely time talking away. Dad was still able to talk. Now I did ask Dad, well, there's a big family, there's 7 of us all together. And I says, well, I call everybody. And he goes, no, just leave it. I said, Dad, don't go anywhere. I said, because the rest of them have to come into you. They'll kill me, you know. But anyway, that was the Wednesday. So I had a lovely time with my dad. And the Thursday then all the family came, and then the palliative team came in, and Dad stopped talking at 3:30. So I always knew Dad was going to, and I kept saying it all the way through. So I find it crazy that, I don't mean I find it crazy at the time when I was having these, I was like, is this it now? But I always knew. And then with Mum, oh yeah, Dad said to all of us, Dad, that's who I'd always say to me, Dad, was, because it was his father that came to see me when I died.
Mm.
It was his dad. So throughout the 18 months, me and my dad had lovely chats, and I can't even, sometimes I like to speak and say, it because it's just so raw. It's still, my dad's my dad and my mum's my mum. But basically, I was well able to talk to Dad about heaven and stuff like that. And most days he was like, if he was able to talk and listen and say, oh, that's lovely. And then sometimes he said, oh, I don't think there is. And I says, Dad, there is, I promise you. And my dad, oh, I know you'd never lie to me. And he says, I'm afraid for you. He says, you're just too kind-hearted, and I'm afraid, because I was telling him about other things that have helped people along. And anyway, we were all there as a family, and I said to Dad, I always used to say to Dad, if you go before Mum, I said, take Mum. I said, she hasn't got a life here. Do you know what I mean? Because Mum had dementia. And I used to say that to Mum. Mum, you take Dad. You were always together. So all the family were there, and they all witnessed that. I said, Dad, no, Dad, please take Mum. I said, don't leave Mum. I said, on her own. And my dad opened up his eyes and he goes, yeah. And I says, how long? And everybody's like, Regina, stop. And I'm like, no, Dad's going to answer me. Dad, how long? And he goes, 7. And I says, oh, not 7 weeks, Dad. I said, it's the other brother was getting married in 8 weeks. And he goes, 7 months. So every one of my siblings here, Dad, we were all there, and grandchildren, everything else. My mother passed away 6 months and 11 days after our dad's.
Wow.
And that was sudden. That was, I mean, she had dementia, and with dementia, they're up and down, but Mum was fine. The same thing with her. Like, we were all there, and the doctor rang up and said, Regina, your mum's not doing too good. And I says, what do you mean? Is it a normal illness? And he goes, no. So called the family, and we all went in there. And the exact same thing happened on a Friday. And he says, your mum mightn't be able to make it till Monday. And if she does, it's a miracle. And I kept saying, she's not going. She's not going, yeah. I said, she's not going, yeah. I knew what date my mother was going to die. And I knew what time she was going to die. And I seen my father with my mother the day she died. I was with Mum for 28 hours. And I was with Mum. The family home and get a shower, at least have a shower. And like, Mum was dying for 9 days. You know, that the nurses couldn't believe it. They were like, they thought she'd be 1 or 2 days, you know. So the day that was a Sunday, the 19th of February, and my dad was right beside my mum, and Mum looked, and she's like, as I said, Mum had dementia. And she's like, they were kind of arguing. Like, Mum was like, obviously not for her soul. It wasn't Mum, do you know what I mean? Because Mum is lying there. She's not moving or anything. But my dad was, my mother's mother was there, and so was her father. And her mother was fixing the bed, and her dad was just standing right behind her. But my dad was facing my mother, and he said, Lily, come on, it's time. And my mum was like, no, where are you? What are you doing? So she's talking back to him. And my dad looked straight at me and said, Regina, you have to go. You cannot be here. Because my mum said, I'm not going because Regina's here. And my dad says, you have to leave your mother. She won't come with me, Regina. And my mum was like, no, I'm staying. So with that, then I just looked up, like looked up at the window, and I says, please God, give me the strength. And I just went. Now, bear in mind, my brothers were there for 4 hours. Come on, go home, do this. And like, I even said to the nurse, do you think? And she goes, your mum could be another day or two. She's after fighting so long, like, we can't understand it. So with that, then I just stood up and I says, right, I have to go. I'm going. And Megan was there, and she went, Mum, please don't go. Don't leave us. And I says, Megan, I have to go now. Okay? And left everybody. I left my daughter and my son to witness Mum going, and I left. So I only got home, and I hopped in the shower, and I remember feeling really, really weak. And I remember thinking, Mum's gone. She's gone. And there was no phone calls or texts back and forwards. And I got in the car. I kind of collapsed outside the door here again, because the legs went from underneath me, and I says, I can feel my mum. She's gone. And then we got in the car. I was driving. The husband will drive. So I was going in the car, and I felt this overwhelming calmness. I don't even know how the car got there. I don't know, because it wasn't like I was going crazy. I was just really calm, and the lights are red. You're kind of just waiting for the lights, like, no panic. So I walked in, and I could see Mum, and everybody was there, and I said, she's gone. And I lifted her up. I only missed Mum by about 20 minutes, and I held her. And I turned around and says, why didn't you call me? And Megan said, I did call you, ma'am, but because the head was kind of gone, like, but she called Mark, and I just knew. But look, like, she with my dad now, like, like, they're back together. And like, even when dad passed away, I was being quite greedy. I was like, show me signs, do this, do that, like, show me numbers and come to me in the dream. And I could feel my dad anyway. So, and then mom, she kind of didn't. And I was quite upset about that. I was like, ma'am, come to me, say what you need to say. But they do show signs. Like, I'm very tuned in with the signs. And like, love hearts, mom always played with a love heart that was on my table. I still have the table. I can't even get rid of it. And she just kept loving it. Like, mom had dementia, as I said, and I looked after mom. She had it for 19 years, and she only got it when she was 56. So mom was always with a love heart. And like, with dementia, they come in and out, and she goes, I love you. And like, it's a real, my mom wouldn't say things like that. She'd show you, but that generation wouldn't say I love you. Do you know what I mean? They show you by feeding you, and do you know what I mean? Like, it's different. Like, I say to the kids 24/7, I love you, but
Yeah.
So that's the way I see signs. I see love hearts in the clouds, and they're like, they're graves, they pick up love hearts, stones, so. But I feel them around. I do feel them, and I am being quite selfish, wanting them to be around me 24/7, like, but they're having too much fun up there back together,
I first want to say that I'm so sorry for the losses of your parents in the last year. And I know that we originally had this interview, this conversation scheduled a few months back, and then your mother passed. And so thank you for being
Yeah,
flexible. Thank you for still being willing to
no
do this. I know it's
problem.
only been
Yeah,
3 months since she's passed, and I know
yeah,
they're still healing, I'm sure.
yeah. There's a
Um,
lot. Yeah, yeah,
but and so my heart goes out to you, and also just hearing, it was moving to hear your near death experience story, but then to hear how, I don't know what to say first. Like, it's just
yeah.
everything you
It's so
just
much,
shared.
isn't it?
It really moved me. I was on the verge of crying over. I am on the verge of
Oh,
crying over here, because what I'm hearing, and you were just saying, you got greedy with asking for signs. I think that's just human. And I just keep thinking, as you mentioned and as you shared, your dreams got, that's my dog. my
ah,
your dreams got more intense after your near death experience, and you had these
yeah,
dreams and premonitions related to your parents and their passing.
yeah,
And what I was hearing is, you took these intuitive insights and premonitions and channeled that into energy to comfort your parents and
yes,
to prepare them. And that's
yeah.
what really moves me. I'm about to cry. I just, it's
Oh,
so selfless of you. And because I think a lot of people, and myself included, I'll put myself in this camp, although there are people that are a little more advantageous, way more advantageous than I am. I like to think there are some people, when they experience what you've experienced, like the premonitions getting stronger and the psychic insights. um I was gonna say, some people decide to take a path of taking advantage of those experiences, like, okay, I can make money on this, or
mm,
which is not a bad thing to do in and of itself. It's just so moving to me that you've taken these experiences and you've just you've taken it for other people's, the
mm.
sake of their good, and
Oh
their,
God, yeah.
it's like, it's um yeah, it's just, it's so moving to me. It's so
Oh,
selfless,
thank you.
and I just,
Yeah.
um I don't know what else to say. It's just, it's very moving to me, and I
Life
think, yeah, go ahead.
life was very simple. This is what I say. Life is very, very simple. You have what you need, and you don't need what you want, if that makes sense. And also, you come
Mm,
into the world with nothing. You come into the world naked. You come into the world with nothing. You leave that way. So whatever imprint you leave with people, that's a big thing. That's like my mum and dad left us so much. Like, so my dad was an absolute gentleman, and we call him the legend. My mum was a real lady, and that's the way we were kind of reared, and compassionate and have empathy. And I think a lot of people, I really feel, I feel very, like, this is just me. I just feel like some people have lost that. And when you don't have empathy, or you just need to, like, life is very, very simple. It really is. Do you know what I mean? Just look after each other. My dad's last words were, be kind to each other. And we put that up in his headstone. And he meant that as us as a family. Do you know what I mean? So that's where I'll probably get that from as well. And experience, and that big experience. But it's very, I do feel like I don't shy away from death now. And if somebody, I know people have, their family members have passed away, I'd be very open and talk. Like, I'd let them lead. I wouldn't be like, oh, here, this is what happened. I just let them, and then I say, I need to say, look, this popped into my head. Is it okay if I say it? And they'd be like, yeah. So I've always been like that, actually, always. Well, I don't mean about dying, but I mean as a person, you know. But like,
Right. Right. No, I just, it's just it, like, I'll say, I'm a broken record. It's very moving to me how you've taken your
mm,
experience and used it for good, to help others cope, or to help
mm.
others, or to help your parents. And and it's just there, there's so much comfort, I'm sure, for you in knowing, and you knew this before your near death experience, but especially now feeling that you will see them again.
Oh,
You'll
I
see, and
definitely
you're,
will. Yeah, I
yeah.
definitely 100%. I see them in my dreams anyway, like I
Mm-hmm.
do. And I can actually just lie in bed and say, look, Dad, I need you to help me out. Mom, help me out with this. Like, you know, Mom's kind of shying away a bit because it's still early now with Mom. Dad was there straight away. Straight away, Dad was there. Like, it was like, Regina, you were right. Regina, I'm here, because I did have them conversations. I said, Dad, come to me. I'm not afraid. Come to me. Tell me what you need to tell me. And
Yeah.
Mom, I know Mom is going to come and say something amazing. She's going to, I know, I can feel that Mom is going to say something or do something that's going to be like the origin. Not that it's not proof, it's just I don't need proof. I'm not living it. But what I mean is, my mom is shying away a bit at the moment. Do you know what I mean? But like, my
Yeah.
mother was like that. My mother'd have dreams. My mother, looking back now, my mother had dreams, and they'd come true. Do you know, like, she had a dream that one of the aunties, she had a baby, and the dream came, like, this years ago, before, well, I mean, they had phones, but not everybody had a phone in the street, you know. And my granddad, the same granddad that was there when I died, he said, Etna's going to be okay. She had a baby boy. She's in a coma, but she'll be okay. So my mother woke up and told my dad, and my dad says, oh, she's not due the baby for a bit now. Anyway, a phone call did come through saying she did have the baby boy and she was in a coma, but you know.
So this
And
runs in the family.
oh, yes, yes. Now looking back, yes, yes, definitely does.
Wow.
Yes, 100%
Wow.
no. I did. No, I went to two mediums in my whole life. One when I was a kid, and like, it wasn't allowed in our family. Like, it wasn't like, go off and do, you just didn't. You didn't kind of mess there, you know. But one actually told me, she says, you're very gifted. And I remember being gifted over what? It must be art, it must be this, another way. But and then another one I went to, she said, what did she say? She told me the two things I wanted her to tell me that nobody else would know. I said, no, come on, tell me. And she told me, and I was like, okay. But, no, I did tell her. I said, look, I'm very tuned in. I do this. I can do readings myself as a hobby. I help people out, but I'm just letting you know I can do this as well. But I have something in my head that I need you to tell me back. And straight away she said it, and I was like, okay, right. And I ended up reading her then. You know, so it was it was gas. You know, I helped her out with an issue she was having. You know. But it's a gift, and I do feel like that. Like, you know, I'm very private, and like, even doing this, it's it's crazy. I'm excited and everything, but it's just like, oh my God, you're telling everybody that, you know what I mean? But look, it is amazing, and it's a gift, and what happened to me was just, it was just out of this world. That's all I can say. Out of this world. It was, you know.
And who's
And
to
I,
say that what you just shared here, and by the way, thank you, because you said two people knew about this experience before we started, before this podcast. So thank
yeah,
you for being willing to share it widely. And
yeah.
who's to say that it won't help somebody, like someone
Oh,
like
I'm sure it
us, like
will. Yeah,
myself, with
yeah,
fear of death, or with like people who have just lost somebody, like you have just
yeah.
lost your mother and your father. Who's to say it won't help them, or help, or
Mm.
if it doesn't help, then at least comfort them, for the
Yes,
time being.
yes. Ah,
Yeah.
yes, because it's very hard because I'm after going through like this. So many family members that have died belong to us anyway. But with mum and dad, it was like different because they're even closer. And all I can remember is the fog, and everybody's going to know that that's had a grieving. It's just your brain is gone. You're mush. You don't even know where you're going, what you're doing, and how you're doing it. You know. So that part is new to me because it's so intense. It's dad and mum, do you know what I mean? So I have that now thinking because I'd never, you have to be careful around people that are grieving. That's the way I look at life because people do come out and say, "Oh, aren't you better off?" Or uh, like I can understand, but people are trying to say things to comfort you. Do you know what I mean? Like somebody said to me, "When your mother had dementia for so many years, so how you were expecting her," and I'm like, "Huh." She's still my mother. I still
Right.
went and seen her every day. She wasn't left, you know what I mean? Still one mother, like be careful, you know. Like I know when I went through it, I remember thinking, God, I hope I never said anything that I shouldn't have said to people. Do you know what I mean? But looking back now, I know I did, you
Well,
know, because you just have to be that bit extra careful what you're saying. Like
yeah.
sometimes just a hug is better, I think, sometimes because people do come out with crazy, you know, like it's just hard. I think grieving is hard because one minute like you're okay now, well everybody knows this, one minute you're okay and next minute you're not, but as I said, it's a fogginess in your brain. Your brain is gone, it's gone. And then when the fogginess lifts, because I do remember the week we got the phone call of mom, the fogginess was beginning to lift a bit. I kind of knew, oh God, today's Monday. Like the week beforehand, I didn't even know what day of the week it was. Do you know what I mean? And then bang, it happens again with mom. Do you know what I mean? And it's still the same. It's still the exact same. I'm not going to, no, I'm different because I can dream and feel them and sense them. So I have that. And I feel sorry. My heart breaks for other people that don't have that. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm blessed. I'm very blessed I have that. But I still miss them. Do you know what I mean? But people that don't have hope or have what I have and gone through what I've gone through, like I'm sure there's lots of people that have. But I mean, my heart breaks for other people. Do you know what I mean? As I said to you at the beginning, if I could just touch somebody and say, look, feel this and sense this, or get the video from my head into you, it'll give you comfort, you know?
Right.
Because that's what,
And
yeah.
no, and I appreciate what you were saying about how mindful that you've been about how you approach someone's grief, given your
Mm.
experience of the other side, and because it could be so easy for it would be inappropriate if someone just lost a parent or just any loved one, especially a child
Oh,
is especially
child. Oh,
difficult.
yes.
And you say, and if we were to say, listen, it's okay, they're okay, they're on the other side, there's heaven. It's like, well, okay,
Yeah,
yes,
you
but it
can't.
was my child. And
Yes.
I appreciate that you recognize that space for there's we're human, we're
Yeah.
souls, eternal souls,
Yeah.
and we're in human bodies, and we have human emotions and connections, and it's okay to grieve and to let ourselves move
Mm,
through that, while also
yeah.
we can walk and chew gum at the same time, as some people say. We can acknowledge there's a heaven and afterlife, and that's where they are and they're happy, and we can also
Mm,
grieve the physical loss, and it's
yes.
okay.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is okay. And you do it your own way. I've said that to other people. Do it your own way and just be extra kind to yourself. Because I think with dad, I was just on a rush, 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 go, go, do, 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 do. And with mom, now, as I said, it's only a short time, but now, mom, I'm kind of looking after myself that bit better. I'm like, okay, Regina, just calm it down as best you can with my crazy life. Calm it down and just let things happen. I
Yeah.
can't control. That's one thing now. I like to control things. I don't mean control people. I mean control my life. I know I have to be here, there, and do this and do that. You know what I mean? Everybody has that, but now I'm just like, whatever, whatever. I'll get there in the end.
Yeah.
Like I'm a person I can't even stand being late, but me being late, I'll be like, oh my god, I've been stressing out over it. But now I'm just like, okay, that's meant to happen. It's meant to for a reason. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Giving yourself some grace. It's interesting you mentioned being late, because I remember one time I was running late to I was getting headshots done. Very vain, whatever, updating my headshots one day.
Lovely.
and I was running very late, and I told the photographer, listen, I'm so sorry, I'm in the Uber and I'm running really
Yeah.
late, I'm gonna be there 30 minutes later than I thought. It was really terrible. And she said, okay, well then let's
Oh, panic
choose
stations.
Yeah, and she said, "Okay, let's choose another location based on the lighting of the day then." So she said, "There's an alleyway next to my apartment building. Let's choose that instead." Okay, okay, I'll meet you there. So I meet her there, and then while we're taking photos, out walks this really well-known author in the paranormal space, and I go, "Uh, um I, and the photographer goes, "Oh yeah, she's my neighbor." I'm like, so it's just it's interesting. That's a little bit more it's more of that's a very fluffy experience I had. I'll say, but it's just interesting how if I had been running on time, I wouldn't have been able to meet and talk with this person whose work I really appreciate in the paranormal space. I would have never met them. And I find that really, really interesting. Oh, I think you froze. Can you hear me?
Sorry.
Hi. No worries. It's
Hi,
okay. It happens.
that's
It
my
happens.
dad. I mean, mom, she'd say, "You're talking too much."
It's too funny.
Sorry.
No, you don't talk too much, but that it's it's great. No, I don't know what the last thing you heard me say was, but
About you going for your photo shoot, and you were
yes.
down the lane, I think the lane way, something, and then it just went fuzzy and I couldn't hear then. So I was trying, I think I made out lane.
No, no, all good, all good. I'll share with you because I think it just speaks to what you were saying about things are meant to be. Things are just meant to be. I was running late and we had to change the location of the photo shoot because I was running late. And out the apartment building walks this really well-known author who had a Netflix documentary that I had just watched about the paranormal and the supernatural and UFOs,
Oh,
all that good stuff. And
yeah.
I freak out. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I know who you are." And then the photographer said, "Oh yeah, she's my neighbor. I've lived next to her forever." And I'm like, and so what I was sharing was if I had run on time, I would have never met
Yes.
that person. Now, I'm
Yeah.
not proposing that everyone should just run late to things, but
No.
it's like that was meant to be that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything
I
has
get what
there's
you're
a
saying.
reason.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a reason for every season, as you say. Do you know what I mean? Like it's, my mother used to always say that, and what's meant for you won't pass you. That's a real, my mother
Yeah,
saying. My mother had great little sayings. Do you know what I mean?
it's
She was
true.
brilliant.
Well,
Yeah.
your parents sounded like they sound like lovely people, such lovely
Oh,
people.
amazing. Absolutely amazing. It's coming up to their wedding anniversary, the 4th of July.
Mm,
Um, 54 years married. I'm trying to think, yeah, because as I
wow.
said, like I'm brilliant at dates and everything, but that's one thing. It's just, as I said, sometimes I don't even know what day of the week it is, but that's
Yeah.
part of it all. But yeah, they were absolutely super. They raised us all up brilliantly, like, and we're very close as seven. There's four boys and three girls, and the in-laws, and well, I call them the outlaws, messing, you know what I mean? And they've
Hmm.
17 grandchildren. So, and
Wow.
one great grandchild.
Wow, what a
Yeah,
blessing. Wow.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
incredible. Well,
yeah.
thank you so much for chatting with me and for
You're very
sharing your
welcome.
story. Oh, yeah, and for sharing your story with our listeners. And I wish you even much more and more healing to come as you
Yeah.
navigate, you know, the losses in the last year. And I'm just so happy to hear that your experience has taught you that they are around you and that you're supported.
Mm.
And so thank you so much. Thank you,
You're
Regina.
very welcome. You're very welcome. Great talking to you as well.
If you have a question or topic you want me to cover on Third Eyesight, head to my website, juanfranciscospirit.com/contact, and send a message my way. If you really enjoyed this episode, leave a review wherever you listen. I'd really appreciate it.